Surviving Reality contains explicit content full of snark and sarcasm that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Surviving Reality.
I'm Corey.
And I'm Carly, and this week we are exploring Netflix documentary A Deadly American Marriage.
It took a couple of tries to get that title right because I think that title, you can kind of Mad Libs jumble those words up, and that's like 85 different movies, different documentaries that have probably been made at some point in time.
Yeah, the Shanann Watts thing came up. The thing, you know.
The thing, the one.
That was a deadly American murder, not a deadly American marriage. I don't know. Did I even just say the right thing?
Deadly American greed.
There's no way to know.
Maisie's about to nosedive off of this chair. Oh.
No, she's creating a nest.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's digging now. She's going to pull it down off the top. Oh, my God.
So I put the blanket down.
She can't get comfy. Do we have a description for this one? Was there a summary of some sort?
A disturbing 911 call and horrific crime scene raises questions about Jason Corbett's death. His family shares memories and hidden realities beneath their perfect-looking life.
The blanket just fell down on Maisie while you were reading that. It scared the shit out of her.
No, I did see out of the corner of my eye.
Oh, this is out of control. All right, we're off to a good start. It's real good.
We're going way back to 2015.
It's like a lifetime ago. It was a decade ago.
That's crazy. I'm preferring to pretend that's not the truth.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm sure Jason Corbett's family also wishes we were in a different timeline because 2015, Jason is murdered. Did I just declare my stance?
Yeah, the documentary wasn't this biased up front, I don't think. They started off with a little bit more allure. So yeah, spoiler alert. I think our stance is going to be very clear in our take on this documentary.
I was so irritated watching this, and my sister was the one who recommended it to us and said, it's a real murder mystery. At the end, you just don't know who did it.
It's like an open-ended sort of...
There was no real resolution.
Yeah, that was it. No real resolution. I think that's what we were sold on. And when we got to the end of this, we were like, this was very definitive for us. We were very set in our ways and sure about how things went down.
Let's set the scene. So who do we have? The main players involved are Jason, the victim.
Allegedly.
Molly, the other alleged possible victim, his wife.
Potential victim, potential perpetrator here. Yeah.
Well, definitely the perpetrator.
One of. Because then there's also Grandpa Tom.
Grandpa Tom, who is a retired FBI agent. That's not suspicious at all when you're involved in a murder.
It's already red flags right off the bat, especially with his extensive history and experience with interrogations as well. So that puts a lot of things under the microscope for us as far as the interactions go. But then we also have Sarah and Jack, who are the children in this family. Jason's children from his first marriage. So Molly is not the biological mother of these kids, but
for all intents and purposes, she is their mother because she's been around since they've been, like 2.5 and 3 years old, something like that.
It's a whole poly-family situation here because there's no legal connection. There's no adoption that's taken place. So Molly doesn't technically have parental rights. So that is a factor in this story as well.
At the time this takes place, they're 8 and 10 years old.
Was that it? That was the fun fact about that? That was what was going on?
I was wondering if you're going to jump in with anything.
Okay. No, I think the other players that I had for the story as far as this goes would be Tracy, who is Jason's sister, and then her husband, David. They become very important characters in the story. And then also I had the note for Sharon, who is Molly's mom, who did not have any input into this, even though she was there the night when the murder took place.
Did she even participate in this?
She was not involved in the documentary. There were photos of her.
See, that also makes me wonder.
This is weird.
What's the state of the marriage between Tom and Sharon today? Are they still together? Does she find what happened to be a little suspect?
Okay, there were suspicions because what happens here, we get dropped in, introduced right away. This is the 911 call. We're figuring out this crime that has taken place. Jason is deceased. There's blood all over the place. It looks like the crime scene is a very violent, gruesome sort of encounter that's happened here, and they're trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, but Tom's the one who calls 911 to get them to come over, and he really downplays what's going on.
To get them to come over? He's inviting them, like, 911, hey, you guys got any plans tonight?
It's not to resuscitate Jason.
Clearly not. I mean, they're giving instructions on CPR over the phone. You can tell they're pretending to perform CPR because who can hold the phone and count the reps that they're doing and press chest compressions while you're holding the phone too?
What if he was on speakerphone?
It didn't sound like speakerphone. You
can tell when someone's on speakerphone.
You could tell the difference. No, Tom was very chill about a lot of this, so that seemed out of the ordinary right off the bat.
Well, he was like, yeah, so I hit my daughter's husband, my son-in-law, with a baseball bat because he was being aggressive towards her. And I don't know if he's breathing or not. Meanwhile, the room painted in blood.
There's a lot of evidence that would suggest there was more than just a clunk on the head with a baseball bat, because that was the thing that he admitted to in the 911 call. There were other weapons that turns out there were involvement in the crime as well. There just happened to be a brick on the nightstand, because who among us can go to sleep and rest easy without having
night brick,
a trusty brick on the nightstand? Thought it was kind of odd. But
gotta say, seems a little out of place.
But that's what Molly's going with.
Although Molly can explain that away. They just set up a new garden, and she took some of the bricks for the kids to paint, and she placed them in her bedroom within her reach.
No, see, most of them were outside in the driveway.
Yeah.
No, see, yeah. And then
she squirreled a couple away.
It was going to rain, so that's why next best place to bring them in from the driveway to the primary bedroom nightstand.
Through the garage, into the main house.
Up the stairs, through the bedroom door, next to the bed.
To the primary suite. That's where everyone brings their precious bricks that cannot be exposed to rain outdoors.
The family bricks, which Tom did not mention in his 911 call. He mentioned the baseball bat. That was all that he knew and that he was aware of, because he never admits to any fault. He never mentions anything about what Molly did. I don't know what Molly was doing during this altercation, because I was fighting for my life, even though I have no defensive wounds, no sorts of scratches or scrapes,
no
or
real
bruises.
Injuries.
No injuries to me, but I was in a fight for my life.
And so was Molly, because he was choking her.
Clearly.
That's what started all of this.
Yeah, because Tom just walks in on, he heard a dispute. There was an argument. There was a, what would you define this as? A kerfuffle? A scuffle? There's something that was upstairs. Tom knew it didn't pass the sniff test, so he heads upstairs to barge in to his daughter's bedroom.
And somehow found a baseball bat between the guest room and the primary.
Yeah, this is not their house. He does not live there.
They're visiting for the weekend.
From out of town.
On a spontaneous trip, he claims.
Did he pack this baseball bat? Okay, so that just makes this odd in a couple other ways now. So we're going to think through that. Okay, we'll table that for now. But this is the scene that Tom paints for us. He's into the bedroom. Jason has been choking Molly and then has now he's got like a sleeper hold sort of setup now where Jason is behind Molly and then Tom is in front of them, and Tom is telling him to let her go, and Jason is saying that he's going to kill Molly, which Tom then decides he's going to have to intervene here with the baseball bat and make contact with Jason to stop him from harming his daughter. I don't know how you're effectively going to do this. If you're taking a swing and your daughter is between you and another person that you're swinging the baseball bat at, the logistics behind that are very confusing.
She escaped just in time. You don't remember that piece of the story?
No, I heard that they were struggling back and forth. There were a couple of swings, and then Jason grabbed the bat, and then he was taking some swings, even though
he missed every time.
He missed every single shot. He's terrible with the baseball bat. No hand-eye coordination.
But you missed out. You're missing a big part of the story. He's not skilled in American baseball because he's Irish,
Okay,
and
yeah.
he is trained in MMA.
See, if it was a cricket bat, he'd be fucking these people up. I think that's what it was. That's the difference.
Do Irish people play cricket?
I think
Is
that's
that just an English thing?
Isn't that just
British?
a general? No, that's like a
I'm
European
insulting
thing.
people. No, don't say European.
Oh, sorry.
We're going to get a lot of negative reviews.
Wait. Okay, hold on. It's real big in India too, so I'm not, making any connections there of where that is, but I'm just saying, like, generally that region of the world
Enjoys a good cricket game.
enjoys a good cricket match, Carly. But yes, good try.
The cops look at this and they go,
Oh, I've seen this 100 times. Classic case.
This is the first time that I agree that something does seem a little off here.
Well, I think, there was they're getting the story from Tom. They're getting a story from Molly. They're looking at the crime scene photos and taking a look at the room itself. None of this is really matching up as far as the accounts that are being given. It doesn't match up with the forensic evidence at the scene.
And the other important thing is we only have 2 other people who were witness to this. We have Molly and we have her father, Tom. Jason is deceased. And Molly's mother slept through the entire crime.
Okay, so Molly's mom, Sharon, was in the basement, and Tom awoke to this great disturbance that was happening upstairs. And he said, you know what? I'm going to go up there and check on this. And Sharon said, okay, whatever, and rolled over and went back to sleep for the rest of the encounter that took place.
You are sleeping in a strange home. It's not your house. Something like that happens, and you just go, good luck dealing with that.
Your husband,
I'll see you in the morning.
Your husband has told you it sounds like someone is upstairs or something is going on upstairs. Grabbed a baseball bat and then left the room. That wasn't enough to keep you awake? Interested in how the next 10 to 15 minutes are going to unfold?
Maybe locate your phone, get 911 ready. No, none of those things.
Go listen for maybe what's something happening. Is there anything being said? Are there any other noises or threats? Go check on some children, perhaps.
The kids who are sleeping upstairs? No.
Fuck them kids. Whatever. I'm rolling over. I got the bed to myself now. Sprawling out.
Good luck up there.
Good luck.
And then there's a fight that continues to get worse. Continues to sleep through the entire
slamming.
thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of striking with baseball bats, striking with
bricks,
family bricks, decorative bricks. They were going to paint them. That's why it was inside at the primary nightstand, the best place to dry out a brick.
So the cops are trying to look into this. And in the meantime, Tracy gets word that her brother has been apparently murdered. I don't think that's how they put this. I'm going to say it
He's
because
not alive.
That's my stance. He was murdered.
He was unalived. And so, now it becomes a race where Tracy and her husband David are trying to get to America because they're still in Ireland. So they have to go to North Carolina because now their concern becomes, are the kids okay? What's going on? What's happening? And they're just trying to assess the situation, essentially.
They're worried about what happened to begin with, but then they're also thinking, we've got to make sure the kids are safe.
So they start to get a little suspicious when they notice that they're kind of being rushed through some of these steps that are here, as far as like with the funeral process and things like that. So Tracy wanted to see Jason. She wanted to see his body.
And have a final goodbye.
Just that final closing moment. They're being instructed nobody's allowed to see the body. Molly's pushing for Jason's body to be cremated very quickly.
These are all red flags.
This is not good.
Not good.
Especially when that does not align with Jason's wants as far as his, not like his will would go, but I think it was just like his requests. And he made clear to his family prior to that, that was not the plan.
He did have a will, though, because it said that the kids are supposed to go to Tracy and David.
Okay, so maybe it wasn't part of that.
Fuck that, though. Molly has got lawyers on speed dial, and while she is trying to explain what happened to the cops, she's also getting a lawyer to file emergency custody of the children.
And she's trying to file for adoption, too.
In
Legal
48
adoption.
hours, within 48 hours of this happening. She's got that all in the works. And part of them not being able to see Jason's body at first, they had to go to court to try to get that done because of what Molly and her family were doing to try to keep them away.
So they didn't make it easy.
It's not looking good. And then they interview the 2 other witnesses who are in the house.
The children.
The children.
We got Sarah, we got Jack.
They bring them to a child psychologist who starts asking them questions about what they witnessed, what their home life was like, what Jason was like, and they start to share some disturbing details.
Disturbing details if you're just reading the transcript. It gets odd. There's still these little red flag moments here, too, because the verbiage that's being thrown around in some of these interviews from an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, it sounds like they may have been coached, because a lot of what they're saying when they're answering, they're just saying, well, mom told me that. Mom told me that. So a lot of the information that they're sourcing or that they're crediting this to is back to Molly. And then also thrown into the mix there is adult-like descriptions of abuse.
Jack's 10, and the way he describes what went down is that Grandpa swung the bat and hit Daddy's temple, as if that was just an accident, which also the crime scene does not tell that story.
There were a couple other hits that were involved there.
What small child understands the impact of what can happen if you hit someone's temple, what that is and where it's located?
Well, and how many times did you hit the temple? Because the evidence physically in the room is showing a lot more than that. Unless a raptor flew in and scratched the back of his head before he got hit in the head with that baseball bat.
You're going to get me going on the owl theory.
I've got suspicions. Yeah, is there an owl theory that can go into play here?
If you want to hear us really get unhinged on a true crime documentary, it's going to be The Staircase.
Listen. We've done our research on it, though, and it honestly, that's the thing that makes the most sense.
I'm
just
going to charge
say,
the bird. Give the bird the chair.
It's too late. You can't do it. Now it's double jeopardy. You can't charge him again.
He also says that his dad was physically and verbally and emotionally abusive to Molly, but uses those exact words.
That's odd.
All the different types of abuse.
To go into that very specific
Not
type
just
of abuse.
like, oh, he yelled at her a lot, he hit her or pushed her.
Physically and emotionally abusive. So, yeah, most 10-year-olds aren't walking around with that sort of vocabulary. And not to knock the kid. I mean, he's a bright kid, but just it seems like there's some coaching. So then we have to start looking into, the police then investigate, all right, it seems like a lot of this information is going back to Molly. Let's take a look into her character a little bit more.
Who is Molly?
Who is Molly? What's the backstory, though, of Jason and Molly? And then even before that, what's the backstory of Jason in general? Jason had a first wife, too. That was where the story begins, in some ways.
Jason was married to a woman named Margaret, who they called Mags. They had Jack and Diane.
Little ditty about Jack and Diane. No.
Well, I get Sarah.
Jack
I
and
can't
Sarah.
even remember her name.
I don't know.
So Sarah's still a little baby, and Mags passes away.
It was kind of a sudden, unexpected. She was asthmatic. She had a significant asthma attack, was unable to breathe, and passed away.
Or so they say.
Well, that's what the official documentation has, and then that's what we had for most of the documentary. Yes, that was the theory, before the owl theory comes into play.
That means Jason is left as a single father with 2 small kids. He's busy working and taking care of these kids and figuring out what's happening now that his life just significantly changed so quickly and unexpectedly.
He's grieving because this is a terrible loss. It was a soulmate sort of relationship that he had between Jason and Mags. So this was all very sudden, very unexpected. This is a ton of stuff to process and deal with. He's brokenhearted. He needs some help. He goes to an au pair agency and is then paired with, you guessed it, Molly.
Molly, who has decided that she needs to get out of North Carolina. She needs to get out and see the world. She had recently suffered from a miscarriage and decided that working with children was her true calling. So she went on this au pair site, became part of the agency, and found Jason's profile and found it interesting that this man had this sad story.
Okay, you're putting a spin on the whole thing now. You gotta lay the facts out as it is, okay? Let people reach their own conclusions, because you're assigning a whole bunch of other stuff into the intention from the onset.
Really?
See, I saw it as more of...
I thought I was just restating what
No,
we saw.
No. No, there's a claim in there, too, in what was going on with what was being said. See, I just saw it as Molly was seeing this as, I need to find me a husband because I'm a 25-year-old old maid at this point.
In her words, because she complains about it later in an email.
She does. I paused and I read the emails. She was whining about that. That was a real thing. So...
See, but now you're assigning an intention here.
No, I think that's supported by evidence.
Okay.
Of the complaint of, I'm 25, I'm not waiting around my whole life for this, blah, blah, blah.
I was turned off by the fact that she found a family on this agency site where it's just the father, there's no mother to these two small children, and that she feels like she's now going to step in and fill that role.
Because we have Tracy... Jason's sister has access to his emails after the fact. So they share some of those communications between Jason and Molly at the time, because it's pretty apparent to a lot of people that this isn't just an employer-employee sort of relationship. There's something a little bit more here.
It progresses very quickly.
It's going very quickly. And then that's what's noticeable in the email exchanges, where Jason is requesting, hey, can we slow this down a little bit? My kids have been through a lot. I don't want to run the risk of something not working out between us and then having them lose a mother figure here again at such a short interval from losing their biological mother. So it was a lot of concern around the kids and protecting them. But Molly is just issuing ultimatums and pressuring. And it seems like she's just pushing for this to go more serious and faster than even Jason was really comfortable with.
Yeah, what concerned me about the emails is she at no point seems worried about how the children will be affected by anything, because he's expressing that that is his reason for wanting to slow things down. And her response to that is, well, I don't have time to sit around and wait for you to decide what you want to do or don't want to do.
And that might be the right decision for you. And that's great. But you need to make that decision right now. And I think I've said this before on the podcast, maybe not this one, maybe over on Surviving Sister Wives. I can't remember though. But anytime I've been issued an ultimatum personally in my life where the answer is now or never, I've always chosen never, and I've never regretted it yet. So this is an opportunity here to kind of take a look and see. This was somebody who said, yeah, all right, then let's go ahead and go for it. Because then next thing you know, they're engaged. They're going to move the whole family to North Carolina.
To give the kids a better life than living in Ireland.
That was Molly's reasoning. And I would go ahead and just disagree.
I'm not saying that any place is perfect. But if you're going to compare the living situations and the opportunities as far as education go and
healthcare,
there are some people who would be led to believe that perhaps Ireland, not the worst place to raise two children. But we're off to North Carolina because that's what Molly wants to do.
And everything's great.
And that won't be at all traumatizing for the children to be taken out of the only environment and country they've ever known.
No, that's fine, because this is what I want. This is what I envisioned. It's a bigger house. So that's nice.
The kids did like that. They did talk about it. The house, very impressive.
Yeah, it's this huge mansion of a house. So everything's great. When they first get there, the people are real nice. They're getting involved in local sports. They're making friends. They had a wedding very shortly after. Huge party. Everybody's having a good time. Everybody's having a blast.
Well, except Jason's family's kind of not having a blast because they find out from the other side of the family, from Molly's friends and family.
Oh, it was from the maid of honor, Susan. She gets to yapping.
That they did not get the full story about how these two met. They were not told that Molly went to Ireland and was an au pair. They were told that Molly was BFFs as a child with Mags.
Mags.
I want to know what I was trying to say.
Not
I want to say Megs.
I don't know.
Little women.
Mags. It's okay. Well, that's singular Meg. Not possessive Mags.
How about the Meg?
The Meg? Oh, gosh. That's something totally different, but I think that's in the Atlantic.
How did these two possibly become best friends as children?
Pen pals. That was my theory.
They wrote to each other, huh?
They wrote.
And they became such good friends through the art of the written word.
Yes.
That Mags said, hey, I want you to come to Ireland and be with my husband after I've passed, and you'll be the godmother to my children.
Yeah, I think that was how it was written in her will, pretty much, word for word, exactly like that. That was what they started with the pen paling. They were drafting different versions of their will, and then Molly was like, hey, maybe you should add in a part where I'm your children's godmother if such a terrible incident should occur.
Except that never happened. And
yeah, well, that didn't happen.
Jason's family is like, what the fuck is this woman talking about? Because she never knew Mags, ever.
How bad would you feel as Susan? Because that's what you've been told. And then that's what you were just trying to connect with the groom's family about, how romantic the fairy tale of all of this is, that she went over there to do this selfless, wonderful, caring thing. And now it's this happily ever after moment here in North Carolina.
To me, it's weirder for the story to have been that you were friends with this person and now you're going to marry their husband versus you went there to work and it turned into something romantic.
Is that just like too close to like prostitution adjacent? Is like that why she's trying to steer away from it? Where it's like, whoa, there was no exchange of money or anything.
Well, no, my theory is everything goes back to the kids. And this is about creating a closer relationship with the children than actually exists.
Yeah, it's one that
I was chosen as the godmother of these children.
Yeah, their mom wanted me to be their mom.
Yeah, like I have her blessing to now have these children be mine.
Okay. Well, that's assigning a lot of intention behind that too,
yeah.
But we know that fits very well with your theory. That's okay.
Thank you. I'll rest my case at the end of the podcast.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how far we get here. All right. Well, we'll snap back to the investigation for a little bit.
No, that's not the only weird thing she's done.
Oh, really? Well, that's what I'm saying. Is this is back to like the current day weirdness, because the police are finding out. Yeah, I don't think we can trust this Molly gal because she's just out here telling all sorts of stories. So maid of honor Susan at the wedding, that was one. Then we got book club stories where she was telling graphic representations of how she birthed Sarah, even though she is not Sarah's biological mother, in case anyone forgot.
And people in the room knew that. So she is telling this with a completely straight face to a group of people where some of them definitely know that Sarah is not her child.
But some don't. So then I think that's extra confusing, because then you have people who don't check that at all. If somebody was saying that and you consider them a friend, close enough to be in a book club with, wouldn't you call them out on that and be like, are you okay?
I don't know if book clubs are really like
Oh, it's not like that
friends.
tight-knit? It seemed like more of an intimate setting for friends.
Okay.
Then what would happen?
They're not good enough friends because they didn't check this bitch and say, what are you talking about?
Clearly not. Yeah, they let her slide, and she's just out here popping off with whatever story comes into her head here. She's making up her own little book club fantasy.
Now the cops are like, we're not going to be able to use anything that she said. We can't trust any of it.
There was another one, too. She was fabricating stories of a sister in college who passed away. She does not have a sister, never had a sister. This person did not exist. So she just seems to have this pattern of making up stories, pathologically lying is what it's sounding like, because she just impulsively does this or finds herself in situations where she's trying to garner sympathy from people. We're not really sure what the intention is.
That's creating a real predicament for the police because they only have these two witnesses, one of which is Molly, and then her father, the trained FBI agent, who they feel is trying to control the interview that they're doing with him.
Do not trust her, is what the notes say.
She is a fugly slut. I didn't know if I should say it or not.
That's fine, whatever. But no, then we get into what this is tying back to adoption drama.
Because the wedding's over. That was one big thing on Molly's list that had to be accomplished. Now we need to move into adopting the kids. Because she wants legal claim to them if anything was to ever happen to Jason.
If such a terrible incident should occur. But Jason just kept stringing it along. It was supposed to happen. Adoption day was supposed to be taking place as part of the wedding ceremony. That was Molly's original plan.
I think that was Robin Brown's original plan as well. Didn't work out that way.
Yeah, no paperwork shuffles in place there, so it didn't work out. But she kept blaming Jason for stringing it along. But I think the more that Jason learned about the adoption for her to become a legal guardian of these children, he got concerned because he started finding out that if they were to divorce and she had adopted the children, she could be granted sole custody. He could lose his kids in a divorce too.
And these two haven't really known each other that long. And their relationship doesn't seem that great. It's a little rocky.
To say the least. Yes. It's a little bricky.
That was a low blow.
No, I think it was up high. It was top of the head mostly. You keep setting them up, I'll keep knocking them down. But this is what kind of swirls into like the kids' experience here now, because they're getting caught up in this now that it's a custody battle between Molly and Tracy, Jason's sister. We're kind of getting a little bit more insight into the kids' experience at this time. And what they were remembering was that Molly was really pitching this great idea of this whole new life, that they're looking for apartments and it's going to be so great. Stay with me, kids.
That's what every kid wants after one of their parents unexpectedly dies in a tragic circumstance, is to start apartment shopping online.
To move into a 3-bedroom apartment.
3-bedroom, wow, what a budget.
Probably. But no, those hopes and dreams are dashed rather quickly.
Because the court's got to get involved. And this is where it gets very poly-family again, because this just proves you can put something in your will about who you want to be the guardian of your children, but somebody can contest that. That's what's happening here.
That was what was happening. Molly was trying to contest it, but...
The thing these kids got going for them, they're Irish citizens.
Irish citizenship.
They are not dual citizens of Ireland and the U.S. They are just Irish citizens. So the court is thinking, these children were born in Ireland, they were raised in Ireland, they're citizens of Ireland, they have next of kin who are ready to take them back to their homeland. That is where we think that they should go. Probably not with suspected murderer Molly.
Still up in the air, but yeah, maybe we shouldn't trust it exactly. So there's a custody court order that is implemented here, and so the kids are back to Ireland. They're able to do, like, there's a whole funeral for Jason. Jason's buried next to Mags because that was what his final wishes were.
Were they his final wishes, or that's what Tracy thought he wanted? I thought that's what she had said.
I think that she was saying that, like, it had been made clear that, like, that's where he would want to be.
Well, also, why would you bury him in the United States, a place that he spent very little time, and you have no family that's going to be able to go visit?
Yeah. So this is a really rough, brutal time, especially for the kids, because now that's what some of the close family members are realizing in Ireland now, is that these kids have lost 3 parents because their biological mom has passed away, their biological father has passed away, and now they've been stripped away from the only other person they knew as a parent, Molly.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I agree with the court's decision of where they ultimately placed the children, but the way they did it, could you have maybe tried to be a little less traumatic than having a cop car pull up and then telling them it's time to pack your bags and get out of here?
Yeah, to like drag them out from Molly's custody, I guess. You know, it's just, this becomes a whole other issue. I don't know how they would be able to argue though, because going with Tracy and David in Ireland, they are trained foster parents. Like, these are the most suited people to probably help these kids through this traumatic experience of what's going on. So, I mean, I agree with like how this was done, but not maybe the methodology of the individual steps that got us to that conclusion.
The investigation isn't over. Even though they've already buried Jason, the kids have been placed in Tracy's custody. The tox report comes back. They've been waiting for the toxicology because part of the story that Molly and Tom have reported to the police, I was going to say spun, is that Jason was drunk. And what started this entire altercation was that Sarah had woken up with a nightmare and that he was angry that one of the kids had woken up. And that is how the fight with Molly started. Unfortunately for them, he barely had any alcohol in his system.
He did have some of Molly's medication in his system, which raised a couple more suspicions, because did he take it willingly? Did he take it unsuspectingly? That's odd.
Taking her trazodone. Maybe they wanted him a little bit subdued.
Seduced.
Subdued.
Different. Different crime.
I think Maisie takes trazodone sometimes when she has to be sedated.
Just the puppy pills
Yeah.
size.
I don't want you guys to think we do that.
No.
She had to do that one time after she had stitches.
Yeah, because she was trying to run and jump, and that was not good.
Yeah, that was not great, guys.
Immediately.
That was horrible, remember?
That was terrible.
They were like, well, if she doesn't settle down, then you can come back and pick up the medication. Never doing that again. Just get the medication from the start in case you need it.
You need it, yeah, because she kept trying to jump out. Yeah, that was no good. But this is the part where they were exploring some of the other results that came back from the other, not just the toxicology, but also the autopsy report stuff too, where they were keeping track of most of the injuries, mostly to the side and the back of the head of Jason, which that's not lining up with Tom's account of what happened where he was facing off and Molly's in the middle of them. How do you swing a bat where then it hits somebody in the back of the head? Maybe one shot on the side, but then you're basically just repeatedly striking someone who is no longer a threat to you at that point if you're hitting the back of their head repeatedly.
The other thing that they keep stressing is how violent this scene was, that it wasn't just you try to get an aggressor off of somebody and then kind of left them alone. It was, they beat him to death. And also the back of the door had a lot of blood and a handprint on it, which told them the door was shut at some point and then was left open later on.
Yeah, so I mean, like the blood spatter in multiple rooms, the damage to the walls of missed strikes and showing the level of where that person would be that they would be swinging at. Clearly, this is not just trying to disarm someone or remove a threat. You are trying to eliminate someone from existing at this point.
Starting to look a lot more like murder to the police than self-defense.
Murder with malice, not so much self-defense. Especially, you got two weapons involved too. Come on, that's not just your run-of-the-mill trying to diffuse a situation. Come on.
The prosecution is starting to develop this story where Molly and Tom murdered Jason. The things that aren't fitting with this picture is the testimony from the kids that says that, in fact, Jason was abusive towards Molly and that he was angry and aggressive and physically abusive. Luckily, we're going to clear up the issue with the children's testimony because Jack's having a really hard time adjusting to living in Ireland. He really misses Molly. Both of the kids miss Molly. That's the only mother that they really remember right now. And Jack decides to secretly leave Molly a voicemail because they're not supposed to have any contact.
But then that's the other side of it too. Molly has been blasting on social media, trying to make contact with the kids or sending messages to the kids through other people who may be able to speak to them on her behalf. So she has been trying to reach out to them. And then Jack goes out of his way where he does call. He leaves a voicemail and he specifically says, "This can't go public, but I miss you. I love you." He was being very honest about his emotions at that point in time, trusting her with this information, and immediately it gets released. So clearly, if you left this voicemail with Molly, she's the one who released it. So that starts Jack thinking through, okay, maybe this isn't the person that I know or think that I know. She's not trustworthy in this way that I thought she was.
It shatters the illusion that Molly has built with the kids. Now they're starting to think, okay, if she isn't trustworthy in that way to keep this voicemail secret, then perhaps she was never trustworthy at all. And they start to think through everything that transpired in the days after their dad being murdered. And should I not say murdered?
I mean, that's
their dad's
what
death?
they're going with. Yeah, that's the case that they're building right now. Yeah.
And they're starting to feel guilty because what they said when they were interviewed with that child psychologist was not true.
It's time, where Jack is now going to come clean about the issues with that interview that took place there. And there were threats that Molly instilled to him and made abundantly clear, where he was coached to lie slightly under duress in some considerations, because the things that Molly was telling him, if you don't say these things, then they're going to take you away from me. So it was kind of this scare tactic in order to get him to repeat the things that she was saying.
And she did that with both of them, with both Jack and Sarah.
Yeah.
They decide they have to reveal the truth now. And everyone finds out that their testimony was manipulated.
They try to go through the proper channels to officially recant their statements from that initial interview that took place. And they want people to know that their dad never did any of those things.
Which means their testimony gets thrown out of court. We're not going to use this if the kids are saying that they were coached to lie, which also seemed to be the direction that the prosecution was going anyway, that they thought that that might have been what was happening, and now they've had it confirmed.
So now Tracy starts to wonder, okay, why? Why would Molly want to murder Jason at this point in time? So that's what starts her kind of investigation into this whole thing of looking at it through that lens of what does Molly have to gain from this? And that's when she starts digging up. It's those email arguments. There's some of that back and forth.
There are a lot of interactions where Jason's texting friends and he's telling them, hey, I want to go back to Ireland. Things aren't great with her.
Molly's still crazy.
She's still quote unquote crazy.
It was sounding like Jason was wanting to leave her and take the kids and go back to Ireland with just him and the kids and leave Molly alone in North Carolina. And I don't think she knew how to deal with that. But they're sticking to their story. They're sticking to the story that Jason was the aggressor that night. It's Molly and Grandpa Tom.
Self-defense.
Self-defense all the way, and they're sticking to it. They are found guilty and sentenced to 20 to 25 years. Kids are doing great in Ireland. I thought that we were rounding out this story. We were getting to the end here. I hit pause. We're halfway through the doc, guys.
Nowhere near done yet.
Shit's about to hit the fan.
And that's because in the American justice system, you can appeal your conviction. And that's the direction they decide to go because it really sucked that they threw out the kid's testimony.
Yeah, you know what? It would have been way better if we were able to use this testimony that was given under duress and persuaded, and that my client was able to manipulate two children into backing up her account of what happened. So it'd be really nice if we were able to do that. Sorry, that was almost a direct quote from Molly's attorney, Doug, who's representing her on her appeals journey now.
And the North Carolina Supreme Court goes, bet? You want to get out on bail?
That sounds good, yeah.
We'll see you back in court.
We'll do a new trial.
Mistrial.
Yeah, mistrial, new trial. Let's do that.
The kids are obviously horrified to see them walk out of prison. They're not sure what's going to happen. They don't have a timeline of when this second trial is going to take place. Now this is starting to overlap with COVID, so timelines are getting even slower with court proceedings. And Molly's still trying to build this story about domestic abuse between Jason and herself.
Yeah, they're building up.
Her being the victim.
Yeah, like they're building up all sorts of stuff where now they're going to a doctor's appointment that Jason had weeks before he passed away, where he was telling the doctor he was getting angry for no reason. And with that one line from that one doctor's report, the notes on that visit, they were able to come up with this entire narrative of, see, that's complete evidence that Jason was, in fact, a horrible monster fueled by rage. And he would just snap at the drop of a hat.
Also, luckily, I don't know, was this not included in the first trial? Molly has all of these secret recordings that she made. She hid recording devices that were voice activated in various places throughout the house, including Jason's car. And she is providing little snippets of the interactions for us to hear and then decide, do we deem this an abusive relationship?
See, I think there's a difference between abusive and these were certainly arguments. These were arguments that were recorded. Arguments, fights, nah, I mean, some of it was
not the greatest moments in people's life, right?
Well, and
you get
also
upset, and the kids are, you can hear the kids upset in one of the recordings because they don't like that the parents are fighting.
Stop fighting is what the kids are saying to the adults in the room. But I think the prosecutor was then saying the unfair part of this is that, unfortunately, North Carolina is a one consent state, a single party consent state where you can record someone unknowingly to them. So if you are catching someone in these moments where they are frustrated, irritated, and argumentative with you, and then you're putting that on display to see, look, I was abused. You can build that pattern out to make that claim.
Yeah, I do want to acknowledge, there are obviously cases where people are genuinely being abused, and this is something that they need to do to prove that this is actually what's happening to them. Because unfortunately, in America, a lot of times it's very, very difficult for abuse victims to get the police to believe them. I don't believe that's what's happening here.
This didn't sound like abuse.
He even sounded polite as he was talking to her through some of the arguments.
Through some of it. Because then were there some backhanded comments? Yes, absolutely. Because there was an argument that was taking place. With abuse, I think the issue is that it's where it becomes a cycle. It's the pattern of repeated behaviors where you're consistently doing that same, where that like berating that happens. It seemed like he was bringing up like, we've talked about this before though. So it's almost...
It seems like he was baited into a fight in some of them. And there's not context because they're playing us a 30-second clip.
She's saying that they're voice-activated microphones that only start picking up when people are talking. Was there more? Yeah, is there any other?
They apparently weren't there the night of the murder, the one that she had on the nightstand to capture what actually happened in the room.
She accidentally squashed it with a brick, and then it wasn't recording anymore.
I guess she had to remove them when Jason found out, because one day they were in the car and Jack found the microphone and was like, hey, what is this?
Well, and this was like pretty close to the murder as well, is where it was like weeks before, where Jack found one of the microphones in Jason's car, and then Jason asks the kids, how would you feel about moving back to Ireland? Just us, not with Molly.
I don't think I would have told my kids that.
All in favor.
Like, just in case they might share that. If you're being secretly recorded by someone and your relationship has been really, really bad to the point that you've been considering leaving them and going to another country to get away from them, I don't know that telling anyone your plans ahead of time is a great idea.
All right. And since we do have a tilt of bias, we made it sound like this was all vindictive and this was very set up by Molly to be a gotcha moment, sort of, on Jason being a terrible father, Jason being horribly abusive and all that stuff. She was doing this at the behest of, she had sought out some advice from a divorce attorney, family law person.
She saw the writing on the wall.
Well, she was asking about how do I, like if this was a divorce, I don't want to lose the kids. I want to still be able to have visitation at least, or shared custody or something if we did get divorced. So the advice that she was given was, you need to make a record of your motherhood, essentially. And so she was documenting all these different things that she was doing as a mother for these children. And so that was part of the backlog of footage that she was going to go with, along with the documentation of...
I don't believe that's why the voice recordings were made.
That sounded like a pretty good excuse to secretly record someone.
If you're going to try to prove that you are involved in a child's life to the point that you should have sole custody of them, I would think that you'd be documenting that you are the one who brings them to and from school. You are the one who brings them to doctor's appointments. You're the ones who is informed of how they're doing in school, in charge of their nutrition, all of the things that are required for parents to take care of children, that you have a huge role that you play. And I don't know that you prove that through secret recordings.
Well, I thought it was interesting, too. The domestic abuse expert who was listening to the tapes then gave his expert opinion, where he was attributing notice how the abuser is flipping to being the victim in all of these scenarios, or in this one recording that we do have. Can we attribute that to her, too? Because that's what's happening right now. You're trying to flip who the victim is. He's dead. I would say that he's a victim of murder, at least.
Any way you look at it, he was obviously the victim of a crime. The level of that crime is what you're arguing.
Yeah, and so now to point out that, that's a very clear thing that can happen. And it's like, okay, well, is that happening right now, where now we are flipping the abuse in that direction? I don't like that.
I didn't like that it felt like the defense team knew they had to build a story for the second trial, and everything conveniently fit the narrative that they came into it with. So all you're doing is confirming your own bias. which I know we're probably doing with a lot of this ourselves.
Yeah, but we're not
This was a
defending
murder.
it. I mean, we're not defending it in court, and it's nobody's up for...
No, I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
didn't
an
pass
attorney.
the bar.
Yeah, still haven't. And so it's just, like, that's not up to me to make that stand. There's no way that this was, like, premeditated to an extent.
The cops think it was.
Well, I mean, so, like,
not,
the cops...
not necessarily
I don't
what
think
ultimately happened.
Yes, like that part is what they're saying, because I think that they were saying that they believe that Molly devised a plan to arrange, like, kind of an explosive domestic violence argument.
A scene for her parents to witness so that she could go to court and say, I need emergency custody of the children and a protective order against this man.
So then how do we get from that to then...
Tom came in swinging.
But, like, no, there couldn't be. There's a lot of in between for what happened and what they were suspecting. So I don't even know if that was the plan. Or if it was, did Tom bring that bat with him? Then I'd say it's premeditated.
I think the bat was in the house.
Did he just scoop up a bat? Who just scooped up a bat?
I don't know. We didn't hear enough about the bat.
I need more.
We need to know more about the weapons used in the murder.
I need the date of purchase of the bat. I need a receipt for that.
I need the CTV footage of someone being in the store purchasing it.
If it was Grandpa Tom, I'm going to be suspicious. So no, that leads us to 2022. We've got the retrial. The kids are at the hearing. I think that was my big thing too, was if they're doing this whole retrial, which this has to be absolutely unbearable for Jack, because it was your testimony as a 10-year-old 3 days after your dad was murdered that is now opening up this appeals case. So I feel like he was probably going through it already. And then I was getting upset where they were talking about, okay, let's go ahead and introduce that footage that we weren't able to build a case around. Oh, look, now it's allowed. Okay, great. Well, can we get the kids to come and testify, like, today and talk about their experience in full? Because if you're just going to go off of those tapes from 2015, when this originally happened, I don't think that's going to be a great example. I mean, it helps your case because, yes, it corroborates a lot of your story. But I think if you talk to the kids now, you're going to hear a different story.
The defense is obviously thinking about how they're going to get in front of that, because they want to use the testimony from when they were 8 and 10. And they want to discredit the fact that they changed their story after they moved to Ireland. So they're trying to claim that they were brainwashed by Jason's sister and David, which again is flipping the narrative of, just like they did with abuser versus victim, they're also trying to say, well, Molly wasn't the one who manipulated the kids. It's Tracy who manipulated the kids.
Right. But if you're unmanipulating someone who was manipulated, is that manipulation? So that like that's where, how do you draw the line of saying that was what was going on? Because the story that we get from them now, just even in a couple years separation here, is when they're thinking back on their childhood, they're thinking back on these experiences that they had with Molly. On the outside, on the surface, it looked good. Big happy family in North Carolina. Inside the house, not so good. There's a lot of manipulation. There was a lot of tantrums that were going on. I think Jack said, I love you to his dad at one point, and Molly went and trashed his room. There was just like these revenge type things that were playing out as part of the family dynamics.
A lot of odd reactions that are tied to the children's emotions. Like she wanted them to be more connected to her than they were to Jason.
Taking away their photos of their biological mom and only letting them have photos of Molly around. So it was just like these different sorts of variations of control that were there from the beginning too.
And that, now reflecting on this as adults, they're seeing that these things were strange. Things that they didn't clock when they were that small.
Well, yeah, when you're 6 years old and you're being guilted for, oh, you want to go play t-ball because your dad's the coach? Why? Because you hate me? Like, there's a lot of emotional turmoil that you can put a kid through by asking loaded questions like that.
I was really worried when they said the kids were going to testify because, again, the defense is going to try to rip them apart and discredit them. But we don't even get there because instead they decide we're going to have to plea.
Saddle, 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 saddle. I don't know if I liked the settling because I understand the logic behind settling. I really do.
It was a clusterfuck for both the defense and the prosecution, where it really could have gone. It was a toss-up.
It was.
Of what the jury was going to think.
Well, and also at that point, I just hope that they had enough conversations with the kids and got their take on it too, because if it's just DA cutting a deal because they want to work on their close rate and stuff like that, that's where it's like, can we make sure that this is in alignment with the family's wishes and what they're going for? Because I think their whole thing was their father's name being dragged through the mud at this point. And then you have to think too, when I get put on the stand and if I have to testify, they're going to do the same thing to me as part of this process now as well.
Oh, I don't want to skip over. Part of the defense's story that they were going to go in with was that Mags did not die of an asthma attack.
Right.
That Jason had attacked her in the same way that he was attacking Molly that night, and that he had strangled her to death. Even though both Mags and Molly had no physical evidence, no bruises, there was nothing that made it look as if they had been strangled.
Well, they had a nail dig, I think is what they referred to. So there was a photo from the night of the murder when
she was busy hitting him over the head with a brick and her dad was attacking him with a baseball bat?
Well, either that or this is a whole other thing forensically where the EMTs who showed up to the scene, Jason's body was cold when they arrived. So they were questioning how long has this been before it was called in, because they were making it seem like this had happened just in the moment. They had called as soon as this altercation had ended. And that didn't really seem to line up with the evidence at the crime scene. And so that was calling that into question. The timeline calls into question, because then are you aligning on a story? Are you staging physical evidence that you need to have in place to align with your version of events that you're going to be telling? So it calls into question a couple other things there. It's not definitive, but that was up in the air as well.
The kids are able to give victim impact statements. So they're there at sentencing. And this is basically their only opportunity to ensure that even though they pled guilty and they're going to get some type of deal, that they go back to prison and they don't just walk free on time served.
So they're going to court. They're getting pumped up with some chicken fried jams because who doesn't like fried chicken? You know, it's good.
You're talking about the song that they played?
Yeah, the fried chicken song. But also quite a motivational speech from David. Uncle David in the front seat turns around.
Can you please do it with an Irish accent?
Oh no, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure. I've already insulted everyone from Ireland today, so I think we'll leave it at that. He turned around to everyone before they go into the courtroom and he said, "All will be okay. Time for crying's over. Now it's time to get angry. In there, head up, shoulders back. Fuck these people. They're nothing to us."
That was the speech that you need before you walk right in there and give a victim impact statement.
Yeah, I think I need that on a shirt now or something.
Yeah. Fuck these people. It didn't seem like it was going that direction, and then we finished strong.
Yeah, it was good. I was ready for that.
They end up getting another 7 or 8 months in prison.
Yeah, because it was 51 to 74 months, but that was tacked onto the time that they've already served from their previous sentence, so it's essentially another 8 months or so.
Because they pled down to voluntary manslaughter.
Right. Defense attorney Doug was pretty baffled by the kids' victim impact statements. He seemed really confused why they would say all of those horrible things that they said.
Really good brainwashing that they've done to them. That it stuck through the whole thing, even after hearing the other side of the story. It even ends like that, this documentary.
I was going to say, the part that got me was when Molly came out after this, and in her interview is saying, "I did not emotionally or physically in any way abuse my children." And I immediately flashed back to that was the same exact verbiage that the kids were using in their initial interview that was thrown out. Like, is that evidence that Molly coached them in saying this? This is how she's describing it? This is how she talks about it? Did she not remember? Because that was like 8 years ago.
I don't know. You know what I noticed? She certainly didn't seem to be concerned about the kids or their well-being or their emotional state. And the fact that she did take their father from them, whether or not it was murder, you can disagree on that point, but you did take the only living biological parent that they had from them, and you seem to have no remorse for that.
Well, and now she's kind of washed her hands of the kids too, because, they don't want anything to do with me. And so that's just the way it is, I guess. And she's kind of over it now, which is odd because then you don't seem to really care about dragging them through the turmoil of a retrial here, making them testify and try to counter all of these insane points that you've brought up about Jason and his character.
Tom pissed me off even more, though, because at the end he's talking about how she took him to the beach. How could they just forget things like that, those good, amazing moments? Like, maybe murdering their father superseded all of those other things.
Yeah, I think the
positive memories, probably.
Yeah, like the killing of Dad. Yeah, it's like that was the more recent thing that happened too, and that kind of like interrupts it. There's like a before that happened and then an after, and it kind of changes the way that you look at things now.
He also has no remorse. He was like, he claims still that Jason was attacking Molly and that he did what he had to do to save her life. What do you believe? What do you think happened here? For this documentary that was supposed to have such an undetermined ending.
I think it was pretty clear from the onset as far as we didn't trust Molly.
No.
As far as we could throw her.
No. If you ask me, this woman came to Ireland with a plan. She found a family that was missing a mother. She thought she was doing some Sound of Music type shit and that she was going to come in and she was going to be the surrogate mother to these children and that they were going to forget that they ever had a biological mom and that it evolved into wanting these kids to be hers more than they were Jason's.
But then that's what's weird too, because then it's like to fight for that adoption, to fight for the legal claim of the kids, especially in the aftermath of what happened here, when it seems like at the end of the day, she doesn't care really. Because as soon as they've cut off contact with her, they aren't idolizing her and worshiping her the same way that the little 8 and 10-year-olds were at the time. So now this idealized version that she has of those kids in her head, they don't exist anymore. So it's just like moving on, like nothing ever happened.
I think she's likely mentally ill, and that probably needs to be looked into.
I mean, how involved do you think Tom was in the actual altercation? It seemed like I would grant him as like being involved in the cover-up of what happened.
Oh, so you're not even sure he was involved with swinging the baseball bat?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't clock him as, I don't think like the encounter that he was describing of this standoff that's happening with Molly in between and then hitting him with the bat and then this struggle where they're wrestling back and forth and Jason has the bat and now I have the bat. I don't think any of that happened. I think this was an attack. This wasn't an altercation between multiple parties.
I think most of it happened.
I think it happened
before he ever came upstairs.
Yeah, I think it happened or like
was significantly in progress.
Yeah, but I mean, it definitely didn't happen the way that he described it. So I don't believe that at all. Even just like with the handprint on the back of the door in the bathroom, like maybe they tried to lock him in there at one point.
Wasn't it the bedroom?
No, there were multiple rooms with blood spatter. So there was blood on the back of the bathroom door. There was blood in the corner of the bedroom. It was all over the place. So I can guarantee that I don't believe anything that Tom is saying about what he said that happened. I think he knows what to say in a police setting in order to have the least amount of questions follow up.
Maybe it was an owl.
I don't think it was an owl. I can say pretty confidently it probably wasn't an owl.
Isn't this also North Carolina? Isn't that where the staircase takes place? They have aggressive owls out there.
It's a spree.
I don't know. Maybe it is open-ended then.
That is a mystery, yeah, left to be unsolved.
Let us know your theories. Were you as conflicted at the end of this as my sister was, or was it pretty straightforward for you?
Or did you immediately find suspicion in people and then not believe anything else that they said for the rest of the doc?
Did you find this incredibly biased? We're going to be doing more true crime in the coming weeks. I am so pumped for the Titan Submersible doc to come out on Netflix.
Is that true crime? It's kind of like a murder too. I mean, like it was like multiple.
I think due to negligence. Yes,
definitely crimes.
Yeah,
crimes involved there. So we'll take a look into that one here.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.